Hello, my name is Kurt, and today I will be giving you tips on how to bolster your wardrobe while on a budget. Now I am only 23 years old, and I've only recently started to upgrade my wardrobe, but I am very familiar with the fancy style of dress because I attended Catholic schools as a young child. And as you may know, you are forced to dress formally. You know, dress shirt, tie, dress pants, dress shoes, etc. And a lot of other kids didn't necessarily find this particular style to be very comfortable. You know, you're sitting around in school all day, you get a little bit irritable, but on the contrary, I actually found it very enjoyable. I found it very comfortable. But as I started to grow older, I developed a more casual style of dress. But I still maintain some formal elements here and there. That's just a natural thing for me to do for some reason. You know, I would dress casually, but I would wear things such as collared shirts, checkered shirts, flannel shirts, very nice sweaters, etc. They were still casual, but I would say they were on the higher end of casual. But through personal experiences and through studies of various different topics, I have realized that it feels good to look good, and it is good to look good. Why is it this way? Well, because humans and animals both have first impressions. They base everything they know about you upon whatever interacts with their first sense, so to speak. So, obviously, it is the visual perception. You see somebody walking very far away, you can't necessarily smell them, you can't hear them, you can't touch them, etc. But you can see them at the distance, and you can automatically formulate an opinion. And this is what animals do as well. They see something at a distance and they could judge whether it's a predator or whether it's a friend, and so on. So first impressions are important, no matter what a lot of people choose to believe. We perceive things on a visual level first. Let's say somebody walks into McDonald's wearing full casual attire. You look at him, and by nature, you are going to start to form opinions and ideas about what that person's like. How do they interact with people? What is their career, etc. And you know, the whole casual style has a different vibe than the formal style. Now, take that same example. You see somebody walk into McDonald's wearing a very nice suit, a very nice tie, just looking very, very dapper. You're gonna think automatically, just think about it. When you see somebody wearing a suit and tie, like visualize that in your head. What is the first thing you think of? Business, money, wealth, education, higher paying jobs, you know, lawyer, banker, CEO, etc. Somebody important, somebody that radiates a aura of superiority, an aura of formality. That's just how we work. This is just how human beings work. You know, it's natural. So it's not that we are basing our judgment in foolish ways. It's just what we are used to, and that's just how we are made, you know. And it might not necessarily be true all the time. This is why first impressions are important, but that doesn't mean that is the entire person you are, you know, but it's the first thing we perceive. So when I see somebody walk into McDonald's very nicely dressed, I'm going to think, you know, he has a high paying job, he's on a lunch break, you know, he's probably going to have, you know, a higher education, etc. Because in order to have a higher paying job, you have to have a higher education in most cases. Now, if you see that same person in casual attire, you will form different opinions about him, but they will not be held in such high regard as if he was wearing formal dress. And as like I said, that might not necessarily be true. That person may be completely broke. That person may not even be employed. You know, but that's just the opinion you formulate when you first see that person, which is funny. But of course, we interact with those people and we get to know them better through all our senses and through conversation a little bit later. But this is why it's important to dress sharply and make good first impressions, because they mean a lot. And I don't want to get I don't want to deviate too much into this, but it is true that women on a biological level are looking for the more alpha male, somebody that is wealthy, makes more money, has a higher education, and that suit and that style of dress emanates that. Whether they want to admit it or not, there's obviously women that don't like that style of dress in men, but whether they want to admit it or not, they are still drawn to it because in the animal kingdom and in humans, females are seeking somebody to take care of them. Somebody strong, somebody that has a lot of resources. And this is how it's done. It's done through appearance first, then they get to know you, and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to get into that. That's a different video entirely. So, what's the first tips I could give you to start dressing nicely? Now, I'm a young man, so I'm going to make a video giving tips to more younger men as well, because the older gentlemen already have this kind of figured out a long time ago already, whereas we're still struggling. We're stuck in this new sort of era where a lot of young people are not necessarily dressing sharply unless it's for formal occasions, unless it's to work, unless it's to an interview, unless it's whatever. Long gone are the days where, even working class people dressed in a nice dress shirt or blue collar shirt or whatever you want to call it. But here I'm going to give you tips on how to bolster your confidence, bolster your appearance, because naturally, I don't know how it works, when you put on fancy clothing and you look in the mirror, or even without looking in the mirror, it raises your confidence somehow, it raises your masculinity. It allows you to speak differently, to move differently, to interact on a completely different level, and this could be a very good advantage. Please excuse that sound, that is my